Hello, and welcome to today's show, Legacy Living, Make Your Life Count. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Burgess, international leadership expert and trusted advisor. Welcome to Legacy Living, Make Your Life Count. I'm delighted that you joined me today. I want to give a big thank you to those of you listening, and here's a great big shout out to all of you listening around the world. I'm delighted and so grateful that you tuned in. I hope you're enjoying a fabulous day and that you're having a fantastic week, because you know what? In the grand song of the universe, life is very short. It's short, sweet, and very precious. So, I hope you're making a difference in your own life, because when you do, you also make a difference in someone else's life. Now, a lot of folks want to make their life count for something, and they ask me, Dr. Gloria, how do you do that? Well, it's really very simple. Very simple. You make your life count day by day, step by step, moment by moment, every single day, 365, 24/7. That's what Legacy Living, Make Your Life Count is all about. Now, you can learn more about Legacy Living, Make Your Life Count by visiting the Gloria Burgess website. That's gloriaburgess.com, and you can also visit me on Facebook, and that's facebook.com/Dr. Gloria Burgess, PhD. And the doctor is abbreviated, so it's Dr. Gloria Burgess, PhD. Now today, I want to talk with you about leadership, a topic that is near and dear to my heart. Specifically, we are going to focus on work-life balance. Today I have a very special guest, Danielle Harvey Stinson, and she's going to share a little bit about her work and her leadership journey and how she thinks about work-life balance. So who is Danielle? Well, she wears many, many hats. She's a mom, she's an avid lifelong learner, and she's a very creative soul and a trusted friend, and an amazing mentor. In a word, Danielle is an influencer, and to me, she is very inspiring. Danielle is a leader who makes a difference in her own life and in the lives of so many others throughout the world in her work at the University of Southern California. In that work, she works in alumni relations. Now, I met Danielle about 10 years ago when she was looking for a keynote speaker for USC's Women's Alumni Conference. At that time, I was seeking to expand my reach in terms of impacting more women leaders, and when I heard Danielle talk about her work at USC, she was absolutely in love with what she was doing. I mean, she was on fire, and I thought, yes, I'd love to work with this young woman who is truly passionate about her work. So, it was a perfect match. Now, I'm also a USC alum, which made it even sweeter. For all the USC folks out there like me, fight on, right? Now, as I said, USC is very lucky to have Danielle, and there she works in alumni relations, leading a diverse team of professionals. She and her staff are responsible for engaging all alumni, lifelong and worldwide, through a vast array of programs, services, and events. Worldwide, her team is responsible to and for about 500,000 people in terms of providing them with an incredible array of different programs, services, and events, including the USC's Women's Conference, the Reunion Weekend, and Alumni Leadership Conference. And knowing Danielle, it's a lot more than that. Danielle and her team are also responsible for the LGBTQ Alumni Association, industry and affinity networks, and generational groups. And she will tell us more about that during my conversation with her. As I mentioned just a few moments ago, Danielle is positively on fire, and she is committed to making an impact on the world, and in particular, making an impact to empower women leaders to transform their world. When you hear her story, you will learn why she's so passionate about making a difference, about making an impact on the world in this particular way. Now, when I met Danielle, I was struck by her enthusiasm and by her passion. But these are just a couple of her many wonderful qualities. We are truly blessed and honored to have her as one of our guests on this show. Now, Danielle has worked at USC for a little over 15 years, and her passion for teaching and lifelong learning show up in her work on a daily basis. And she has impacted so many professionals in terms of recruiting, onboarding, coaching, and mentoring. And like I said, she's actually one of my mentors as well. Danielle earned her bachelor's degree in education from USC's Rossier School of Education, and she's currently pursuing an executive master's degree in leadership from USC's Price School of Public Policy. Danielle says that, among others, her mom has had an enormous impact on her life and has shaped her vision for her work. During my conversation with her, you will hear more about her story. You will also hear about some of the people and moments that have shaped and formed Danielle as a person of influence. People and moments who have shaped and formed her as a leader, all with a particular focus of serving other leaders. In many ways, in her outlook on life and in her work, Danielle pulls together the many threads of what my own life and work are all about. Now, you've heard me talk about these threads and themes on this show, the themes of gratitude, authenticity, vulnerability, generosity, strength, passion, presence, hope, and possibility. I just love it. Two women, Danielle and me, from pretty different backgrounds, very different in age and lifestyles, yet we share so many common threads. Can I just tell you something? Danielle and I had a fabulous conversation, and I'm so excited to have this amazing leader with us today. This is going to be a marvelous podcast. You don't want to miss a single word. So put on your walking shoes, grab your earbuds, or simply relax in your favorite chair. Grab yourself a cup of coffee or tea or a nice cool glass of water. You are going to want to take notes today. We're going to have a great time. Okay, now before I jump into today's episode, I want to take just a moment to welcome you. If you're just joining us, I'm your host, Dr. Gloria, and this is Legacy Living, Make Your Life Count. I'd also like to extend a special welcome to those of you who are joining my show, or if you're joining Talk Network Radio for the very first time. Let me tell you, you are in for a real treat. I'm excited to have you listening today, and I'm deeply honored that you've allowed me to be part of your day, so you can be inspired by ideas and resources to make your life count. Today's episode is all about work-life balance, a very important topic as you develop your own identity as a leader. Good morning, Danielle. How are you doing today?
Hi, Gloria. I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's such an honor and a blessing to have you on the call today. Danielle, I know that my listeners can't wait to hear what you have to share with us. So welcome, and again, thank you for joining me.
Thank you. I am looking forward to today's conversation.
Right. So, Danielle, let's begin. If you would just say a little bit about yourself, kind of tell us about you, your journey to, where you are today, and the kinds of things that you do in your current work.
Okay, sure. So I am currently the Assistant Vice President for Alumni Relations at the University of Southern California, and I have been working here for over 13 years now. And you mentioned my journey. I actually started, no shame in my game, as the assistant to the assistant of the head of the Alumni Association. And it was a funny thing that happened on the way to the Coliseum, literally, that I can share with you. But just going into what I do on a daily basis, I am responsible for alumni engagement around the world and with our various alumni constituents. So we have over 400,000 alumni that are living around the world, as I mentioned, and my task, along with several members of my staff, is to break that number down and to engage alumni on a personal level. So we will look at everything from how do alumni work to where do they live, what are some of their personal interests, and then we'll build programs around those things. So there are alumni clubs of New York. There's an industry network based around real estate. We have professional networks for women. You name it, there's probably an alumni program for it, and hopefully that speaks to those alumni. So I have a very creative job, in short, if we just want to boil it down. I get to be creative and, work with really amazing people.
Well, it sounds like this is like the perfect job for you, Danielle. You and I have known each other for, going on 7 or 8 years now, and I know that, it's becoming very, very rare for people like you, professionals, to stay within an organization for, even more than 3 or 4 or 5 years, and you've been there for almost 14 years now at USC. Can you tell us a little bit more about that no shame in your game thing? Your path at USC and why you stayed there longer than the norm.
Absolutely. So I'll start with your last question first. So I've stayed at USC probably more than anything because no 2 days have been the same. And when you're a creative person, like I believe myself to be, you need that. I need that. I need that creative outlet. I need to be, thinking of things differently and in new ways, and how can we do things better. But to start at the beginning, as I was moving through my professional track here, I'm very inquisitive, I think is the best way to say it. I'm inquisitive by nature. So when I was the assistant to the assistant, that means I got loaned out to the entire staff. It was, hey, you, go make these copies, or hey, you, we need you to answer the phone, or, greet guests at the front desk. And I recognize my position in the organization. I was here to be a support and assist any and everyone who needed it. And by doing so, I actually learned a lot about our organization, about USC, in things that I didn't even know as a student. I'm also an alum, which makes the job easier sometimes. But I'm also an alum, so I already had a love and an affinity for the university. But I got to discover people and programs and things that I had no clue about as a student. So when I became the assistant to the assistant, and as I described, worked with everyone and for everyone, I just went about my business in a way that allowed me to really discover, wow, this is a bona fide profession, and not only is it something that I'm interested in doing, it's also something that I happen to be good at doing. And I would say that I probably would conclude that based on all of my other previous jobs, so I've worked at a museum, I was a docent, I've worked for a law firm, I was a file clerk, I've worked at a major hotel and was the night manager responsible for all of the, night processes as well as all of the guest services. So all of those things, oddly combined, allowed me to wear a lot of different hats and pivot when I need to pivot. So sometimes I get to manage the front desk, and other times I'm simply standing there making copies and folding and stuffing envelopes. So, being able to go from one task to the other has allowed me to be successful in those early years. To add to that, quickly, I don't want to speak too long on this one question, but like most young professionals, I was a decade and a half younger than I am now when I first started, but I did look for other opportunities. I was like, okay, I think I've done everything I came here to do. I've learned everything I can learn. I want to go and look for other opportunities. And strangely enough, those opportunities ended up being here. So I don't know if it's because I put it out into the universe or if, I continue to just make myself indispensable. My bosses, my supervisors would say, hey, Danielle's done all of this and she seems to be, successful. Let's add something else and let's provide another opportunity for her. So I've been very fortunate in that I've had an organization that has allowed me to grow up and progress and has progressed with me. So I think that's rare in a lot of organizations, but the fact that I've been able to do it here, I count it as a blessing.
Well, I think the trajectory of your path there at USC, Danielle, is very inspiring, and thank you for sharing, because a lot of people, they kind of scratch their heads. They look at somebody like you and they go like, how did she do that? What kinds of steps do you have to take to get there? And you kind of told us, you unpacked the deck a little bit for us. So I really appreciate it. And it's very inspiring to hear about your journey.
Thank
so
you.
I know you described yourself as very creative and you're curious. You like discovering new things. You're a learner, right? And so I would love for you to share with our listeners some of the key lessons, maybe like 2 or 3 lessons that you've learned through your journey for your time at USC. And also, if you could share with us, what are your biggest challenges as well?
Sure. I'm going to start with actually one of the lessons that I learned just growing up in my household, something that my mother told me that her father told her, and I don't know where he got it, but it's definitely something that now I even hear my children saying, anything worth doing is worth doing well. And whatever your job may be, if you're the one making the copies, you be the best copy maker you can be. If you're the one getting the coffee, you make that the best pot of coffee anyone's ever had in their lives. And, it sounds funny to say it, but I think there really is something to be said. And to make the point, what I always share with my staff or with young professionals or with students that I may be mentoring, you're always interviewing, even when you're not interviewing. And what I mean by that is people are going to observe you in the way that you go about your business and the way that you go about your work. Are you going into your work with passion? Are you approaching your work with, care and thoughtfulness? I think that is something that people observe even when they're not paying attention. And as now somebody who is in a supervisor role, I now supervise other staff members, I can definitely notice that. Even if I don't check in with a particular staff member, on a day-to-day basis, or I haven't checked in with them for a couple of weeks, I can tell when someone's phoning it in and when someone's really going about their work in a way that shows they care. So to speak to the challenges, I think another thing that I sort of live by day to day is never be satisfied with just good enough. And I'll say that in a way, yes, sometimes we do just need to get it done. And I have a short list of things, okay, we've just got to do it, and, this is as good as it's going to get. But after I've done something as big as, let's say a reunion program or a women's conference or any of our big programs, immediately following, and sometimes even the week of, I'll start thinking about, okay, if where we are is the best that we can do, what does next year's look like, or what does it look like the next time? What could we have done better? For the things that are outstanding, how can we replicate that or make it scalable so that we're not stressing ourselves unnecessarily? So that is something that I think, again, attaches itself to that first thing, which is if you're going to do something, do the best. And then if you did do something, take pause and see how can we do it better? How can we continue to get better? And that goes to the lifelong learning and me being a dedicated to always learning, sort of mantra that I live by. And and then we just keep challenging ourselves. I feel like every single day that we wake up and open our eyes and have breath in our bodies, we're here to be a little bit better than we were before. And it's kind of like how I start my day. Like, what's the day going to look like? So those are like my three big ones, and they're all related to one another.
Absolutely. You sound like you could have grown up in my household. I'm just...
We say that all the time.
And I was also thinking about, I'm not even a football person, but yesterday the Seahawks, our local team here, just blew it off the charts. And I only mention it because you talk about the challenge, your particular things, is never be satisfied with just being good enough. Yeah. And Pete Carroll used to be the football coach at USC, and he's now up here. And I'm just thinking, that's how he coached the team there. That's how he coaches the Seahawks. Never be satisfied, and always look for those possibilities. So, yeah. All right. So can you tell us a little bit, Danielle, about your experiences and specifically what you do to educate and empower your staff? I mean, you have people reporting to you. You haven't always had that. So, how do you do that, and maybe who did you learn from? Who influenced you?
Yeah, that is a great question. So just a little bit of a background. I did not share, which is, if it's not apparent to everyone now, my major was education. So it's not an accident that I am so committed and love the thought of lifelong learning. Every day we can get better. There's always something new to learn. And so I actually take the approach with my staff as, how can we make this a teachable moment? Or what are we learning about ourselves, about our programs? What are we learning about the work that we're doing? And how can we apply that, again, to be better, to do better, to grow more, to progress? So even in the times where we don't always do everything perfect, right? Because last I checked, everybody's still human, those of us who are on Earth. So when we do get to those moments of, hey, we did not hit our target, or we totally missed the mark on that, instead of, hey, let me come down on you and make you feel terrible about something that you probably are already making yourself feel terrible about, again, let's unpack and let's look at what can we do differently, what did we learn about that, and how can we just use this to empower us to move forward. So it's so important to me because I've had terrible bosses, not here at USC, it's a wonderful university, but I've had terrible bosses in the past where instead of helping their staff members, figure things out or to be successful, they were always finding fault. This is wrong, that's wrong, you didn't do that right, you should have did this, and blah, 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 but not really giving concrete information about how to be better in the future, or how to be successful at that particular thing in the future. So I know, like I said, how that feels, and how it just makes me want to, it made me at those times just want to throw my hands up, or, hey, you know what, I'll take my toys and go elsewhere. So when I work with my staff, it is important for me to allow them to fail with grace,
Yes.
And again, then move forward. So that's really important to me.
Thank you. And Danielle, you mentioned that you had some really good mentors as well. Can you tell us perhaps about one or two people who really influenced you? I'll ask you the next question after you answer this one. My head's just kind of spinning because I'm loving talking with you.
Oh my gosh, yes. You and I talked about this. You and I can talk for hours, and I'll try. I'll try to give some concrete answers in a short amount of time without going on and on like I'm doing right now. So my mentors. Not to butter up the host, but Gloria, I definitely count you as one of those women, leaders, and confidants who I've been able to call and talk things out. And for my mentors that I've had over my lifetime, and there have been many, some that I have been mentored by and they didn't know it, and then others that I've had, a mentor relationship with formally. But to speak to our relationship and how we've come into each other's lives, I always say you came into my life at the right time, and you helped me with our women's conference program, which I believe we'll talk about a little bit later. But since then, you've always been someone that I could call and say, I have this idea, and because of the trust, and this is unspoken, because of the trust, because of our openness, and because of our transparency and our ability to be vulnerable with one another, I just want to lay some things that are in my heart out to you. And you've been very receptive to that. And I think as mentors, just globally, taking this back for a second, that's what mentors are really that's when they're useful, right? Like we know about the professional mentors. Hey, mentor John Smith, help me get this internship, or help me get this job, or help me with this interview. That's all great, and those are needed. But those mentors where you can just be bare and vulnerable and open and in a safe space, those are the ones that are really near and dear to my heart, which is why I always love talking to you. And I hope that others are able to find those mentors, because they're just as important as those other tactical mentors that you need to get your jobs and get your promotions and get your references and all those sorts of things.
Absolutely. And I really appreciate you sharing that. Danielle, so many people, and women in particular, they kind of struggle sometimes with finding mentors, and I think you've just spoken to mentors are not created to do everything for you, and so we need different mentors in different arenas of our work life, professional and personal life. Yeah, so thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, I want to shift the conversation a little bit and talk a little bit about work-life balance. First of all, I know that there's been a really big push about work-life balance in the last probably 20 years or so, maybe even more than that. I remember talking about work-life balance when I was still back in high tech, and that's been, mercy, about 25 years ago. And so I was wondering, Danielle, if you could tell us what work-life balance means to you, because it means different things to different people, and then just share a little bit with us about, do you feel balanced in your own work-life situation, and how do you achieve that balance?
Absolutely. So this is it's one that I always giggle. I won't say laugh at, but it makes me giggle to hear work-life balance. I actually had someone recently in an interview ask me, well, what's the work-life balance like here at your organization? And for me, it's personal to everyone. So as an organization, I can answer that question. So work-life balance, that is a matter of you, yourself, the staff member or employee, being able to say, based on what is needed to get the job done, and the time that I have to do it, I will be able to do my job within this time period and then go and do my life in this time period. And I think everyone balances it differently. So again, full disclosure, I am the AVP, as I mentioned, so I have about 15 different staff members here that I'm responsible for checking in on, working with, and supporting. On top of that, I also have my own programs that I'm specifically responsible for managing and leading. So that's a full professional plate. And if I allowed myself, I would be here 18, sometimes 20 hours a day in any given week. That doesn't always happen, maybe once or twice. Outside of that, I am married. I have 3 children, and I also have 3 stepchildren who I am responsible for loving and nurturing and supporting. So my life is completely full, not to mention my extended family that relies on me, brother, sister, mother, all those wonderful people and things that are in our lives that we hold dear and feel responsible for and to. So I'm saying that to say it is really Danielle's responsibility to look at what does she get paid to do and is important for her to get done so that she is successful, her staff is successful, and USC feels they're getting what they need from me and us. And then I also need to assure myself and work with my family to give them what they also need. And that's my responsibility. I don't think that's the responsibility of my company, unless my company is saying, I don't care what you have to do, I need you here at these times, even if it conflicts with what's going on in your outside life. And it's very rare in today's age that happens. I've never been told that I can't go be somewhere for my children, for my husband, for my family. So anyway, I think I'm getting a little bit off, but I just want to say that balance, 1, is personal, and 2, it's really up to us to determine when and where things take place. Some days or weeks, the balance may tip in favor of your professional life, and on some days and weeks, things may align so that you are attending to all those things outside of your professional life. So that's just my take on it, and I'd love to hear your opinion on this as well, because you said you started hearing about it over 25 years ago. What were some of the challenges that you faced, Gloria? I know that you were also family and marriage and personal life and professional life.
Yeah, well, I love your response, Danielle, so thank you for sharing it with us, that it's very personal and that you have to take responsibility. I know a lot of individuals that I've talked to over the years about work-life balance. Some people think that it's the responsibility of the organization to provide that work-life balance for them, and I'm more in your camp. I really believe that our professional lives is our responsibility, not our companies, not our organizations, and that goes for work-life balance. For me, I think I take a page out of a friend of mine. She's actually from a little tiny country in Africa called Burkina Faso. And in her culture, she says, Gloria, I don't get it. She says, every time I come to the U.S., we talk about balance, and it's always like 50-50. She said, in my country, it's balance is what's needed today.
Yes.
What's needed like right here, right now. And I love that because, in different seasons of our life, we have different obligations, different responsibilities, there are different calls, and I'm going to say even demands on our life, both in our personal life as well as professional. And so balance is really not something that's static. It's very dynamic. And like you're saying right now, Danielle, your responsibilities, when you said you're responsible for like 400,000 people, I'm going like, what?
Yes.
That's a lot of people. That's a lot of people, right? And
yes.
You have 15 staff that and at some point in your life along the way, you didn't have that scope of responsibility, so your work-life balance is probably different. Your children weren't in the life stage that they're in now. So for me, it's really about what's needed right now, right here, right now, at this particular moment, and in this season of my personal and professional life. Yeah. I
completely agree. Yeah, I love that. What's needed right now. I say all the time, life happens when we're busy making plans. And
Amen.
I'm one of those to-do list people. Yeah, so, hey, I'm going to do these 10 things today, and then life will say, nope, no, you're not. Emergency call, you got to get down to your kid's school, or, emergency call, husband's car is on a flat, and now you've got to help him get that situated. So, yeah, it's nice that people think it's 50-50. Congratulations to anyone who is able to get to and attain and maintain that 50-50. But I think, as someone else has told me over the years, live long enough, and you'll start to see a whole nother side. So
absolutely.
Oh my, great conversation. Thanks again to Danielle Harvey Stinson for being my very special guest. Now, if you'd like to learn more about Danielle's work, or, as she mentioned during today's conversation, if you want to contact her directly about programming and services that she offers through USC, you can reach out to Danielle via email at this address. That's Harvey, D, Harvey, D as in Danielle, at usc.edu. Harvey D at usc.edu. Or you can reach out to her on Instagram or Twitter. And on Twitter, I'm going to spell out her handle. It's at DANIELIZ, as in zebra, A Harvey. At DANIELIZA Harvey, HARVEY. If you missed any part of this week's episode about work-life balance, you can listen to it right here on Talk Network Radio. You can also catch us on iTunes or Android Alexa, SoundCloud, and so many other places. Before I close today's show, I want to give a shout out to women around the world and to my mom. Yay! Love you, Mom. When Danielle mentioned her mom as one of the women leaders who influenced her, you know what? I was thinking the very same thing, as I know many of you were too. I actually ask this question to a lot of people. Now, if I'm presenting at a workshop for young leaders, as I just recently did, or as I have coming up, because I'm always speaking, right? One of the questions I ask is, who inspired you? Who inspired you when you were a young girl or young boy? Who did you look up to? Who did you admire, and why? It seems like no matter where I am in the world, the response to that question is pretty much the same, right? Who inspired you? Who influenced you? This is what I hear. My mom, or my dad, or my grandma, or my grandpa. It is truly amazing how much impact we have as leaders in our own home with our own children. So moms and dads, even when it seems like your daughter or your son isn't paying any attention at all, can I just tell you something? They are. They are listening. They are soaking it in. And more than anything else, they are watching you. So let me be really clear. They are scoping you out, right? They're observing everything you say and do. Most importantly, they are watching you to see if what you say and what you do line up. Our actions really do speak much louder than words. A good friend of mine, who is a former CEO of a very large company, also says, as a parent, as a leader, in any context, your walk has got to talk louder than your talk talks. I love that. Let me repeat it. She says, your walk has got to talk louder than your talk talks. Why is that? Because that's how we build the bridge called trust. That's how we strengthen our bond with those we love. That's how we deepen our relationships, one step at a time, inch by inch, mile by mile, and smile by smile, at home, at work, and in any area of our lives, every single day, 365, 24/7. So, let me ask you this. How is your walk lining up with your talk? You know what? It is never too late to get your walk and your talk lined up, to get your act together, so to speak, right? So you can take it on the road and make the difference in someone's life that only you can make. Remember this: how you live is how you lead. How you live is how you lead. Now, if you happen to miss any part of this week's episode, or if you missed last week's, you can listen on the go, right? You can check us out at talknetworkradio.com/legacyliving.html. You can also catch us on iTunes, Alexa, Spreaker.com, SoundCloud, and so many other places. Before I close today, I want to thank each of you for tuning in to today's episode, for allowing me to share a bit about my journey with what legacy living is all about. Not just living and learning, but living and learning and serving so that you make a difference in your own life and in the lives of others. It's about being on purpose every single day, 365, 24/7. Legacy living is a powerful way to make your life count. Once again, I want to thank you for joining me for today's episode. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Burgess, and this has been Legacy Living, Make Your Life Count. Please join me again next time right here on Talk Network Radio for another episode of Legacy Living, Make Your Life Count. We're here again very soon right here on Talk Network Radio. Don't just count the days in your life. Make the days in your life count. That's what legacy living is all about. Have a fantastic day, and remember, make the days in your life count. God bless you. That's our show today. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Burgess. I hope you'll join me again next time. Until then, don't just count the days in your life. Make the days in your life count. That's what legacy living is all about. Here's to you. Have a fantastic day, and be sure to make it a yes kind of day. Remember to celebrate the music of your life. Make the days in your life